Hey there, CPO here, and it's finally time to start the in-vehicle installation of that Excalibur alarm system with remote start I've been setting up for in the last few videos. No question, the hardest part of this isn't going to be doing the install, it's going to be doing the video of the install. There's a lot of tight areas down in here, but basically I'm going to be working up in here inside the steering column, making some connections back in here and up underneath there. So I'm going to do my best to get it all on video for you, and the areas where it's kind of hard to show you as I do it, I'll do it and then I'll show you what I did and how I did it. So hopefully that'll be helpful for those of you who are going to tackle this on your own. The first thing I'm going to do is get this door out of the way. All right, so underneath the steering wheel, there's this protective plastic panel. It's just held in place with these plastic clips. And now that that's out of the way, we can see we've got this panel here with two 10mm bolts. We're gonna pull those out to access that area. All right, and pull this out, it just pulls up and then out. All right, this gets us back inside the area we're gonna be working and actually where I'm gonna be installing the brain. So the brain is gonna go here, our shock sensor is gonna go here. We're still gonna have to pull off your steering column cover to get to that harness that we're gonna install, that T-harness. But I'm gonna do that probably later on. All right, so let me give you a quick tour down here before I get started. First of all, I'd like to show you where I'm coming in through the firewall from the engine compartment of the vehicle. And that's right there. You can see I've got some other wires in there. Those are camera wires. I kind of wish I installed those a little bit better. I didn't think I was going to be showing everybody. But that's actually where the sensor wires and the siren wire is going to go out. Now it's pretty easy to find from in here, way back tucked up inside there. This is the driver's side kick panel over here. And there's like a rubber, kind of a grommety covering thing that is solid, but you can just poke a hole in it and run wires through it. And it's actually going to come out underneath your master cylinder, which you can't really see, which is a good thing, which is why I kind of like using it. So I find it's easier to push things from the inside to the outside, and then as they hang down, find them and run them. But almost all of these wires, cameras, and this is from my Trail Dash 2, my locker, switches, all that stuff is running through there. Now there are a couple of other options to get stuff into the vehicle, and I'm using them here. So you can see right there in the cowl, there's actually a foam-filled hole that runs in through here, and this is where I have a lot of my switch wiring on this side. And then I've got the same thing on the other side. The passenger side has CB wiring and stuff like that. So I've already used up these holes, which is why I'm now going to that third option. But that is where I'd recommend you run your wires. Again, it's tucked up in there, nice out of the way, and is already sort of grommeted for you. And yeah, it's easy. All right, so another thing I want to show you is where we're going to connect the brake switch wire. So if we look back, we're back into that hole that I opened up underneath. And if you look straight through here, on my vehicle anyway, it's a white switch. That is your brake switch. So when you depress your brake pedal, that switch is what gets activated. And we need to tap into that. That's actually going to be super easy. I'll show you that. The other thing we're going to need to tap into is right here. I actually have a Trail Dash 2 plugged into it right now, but your OBD2 port, this guy right here, we're going to tap into wire in the back of it, and I'll show you how to do that. And let's see what else. That's really it. I mean, this isn't that challenging. Now, I mentioned before in a previous video, if you're a manual transmission, you've got a couple other things. There is a clutch switch. Now your clutch is going to be over here. The switch is going to be on the other side, on the engine side, and then you're going to tap into your emergency brake switch. All right, again, this is a 2015 Jeep Wrangler automatic, and so your mileage may vary a little bit depending year to year, but most of this should be pretty much the same. And if I know of anything, I'll try and remember to call it out that might be different. What I'm going to do next is figure out where you're going to mount your antenna. This also has the valet switch and programming button, and also this little LED to warn people that your alarm is armed. This needs to be high up you know, someplace visible. But however you decide to do that, get it installed and then run down. And mine's kind of easy because I'm missing some trim pieces, but you can tuck it back in between trim, and you want to get it to run down here and come out the bottom. So lots of ways to do that. This trim is usually pretty flexible. You can usually slip that thin wire back in there. I just happen to have it all opened up, so it's going to be super easy for me. I did go ahead and route that antenna right up here. Because I have so much going on there, I guess it makes sense to go there. And then it's pushed through and around, and I'm zip tied along this existing bundle of wires. Anytime you can find an existing wire harness to follow, that's the best route, because from the factory they run those in safe places and have good routes. So, and as you can see, that's going to come down here, enter that, pop down through here. Unfortunately for me, I'm running a roll cage, which makes this inaccessible, but for most of you, you'll be able to pop a panel off here and then be able to shove wires back through. I got mine shoved in through there, and then it comes out right here, which is going to give me a place to start plugging it in for the brain, and then I'll tidy up that excess wiring. Anyway, that's where I ended up going, right up in there. That's actually my rear-facing camera. I have a dash cam with dual cams, and one of them is an inside view. So that's right there. All right, so one thing I did want to point out is you'll notice I did tape and zip tie the first part of this wire bundle, and also taped and zip tied right here. That just keeps these wires in place. I don't want anything tugging them, pulling them out of the connectors, or putting undue stress on them. I can't do the entire bundle because a lot of them are going to run different routes, but for this initial set, I just felt more comfortable. And I'm going to also zip tie this to structure or other wire looms once I get in there. But the other thing I want to do is I've got a couple wires here that I'm going to run over to that kick panel. So I'm going to extend those, and I'm going to do that using wires that I removed out of this harness already. So I'll match the wire gauge and just extend those. So let me figure out which one those are and get them extended real quick. All right, guys, so I'm back on the bench because I wanted to extend the wire that's going to go to my parking lights across on the passenger kick panel. And so I wanted to add a little more length in that. But one thing I also did while I was down here is I removed two wires that I told you needed in a previous setup video, that after working with the guys at Omega to try and find the most efficient way to install, we found we actually could get two wires out of this system for the parking light. Now before, the three wires we were told we needed were the white, the green and violet, and the red and black. And that's because of the complicated circuitry that exists in these Jeep Wranglers. But in testing and in talking about the vehicle circuitry, we were able to find out that the single white wire will be enough to power all of the parking lights. So that allowed me to remove these other two wires and further trim down my harness. So remember, this is a 2015 Jeep Wrangler automatic. There are definitely going to be some differences in a manual transmission Jeep, but I'll cover some of those oddities in a later video. But for now, just know basically any automatic transmission JK, this one white wire should work fine. So what I'm going to do is use another one of these harness wires of the same gauge that I'm not using in this case, whatever, brown and black, and I'm going to use it to extend this white wire. So I personally like to use these solderable butt connectors, but any standard butt connector will work. Get it out of the way. And then I'm hooking these and then twisting. So I've got a good mechanical joint there, and I'm gonna send this over there to seal that joint with solder and then also the shrink tubing. I just like the type of connection that makes. And again, it was mechanically connected, and then this just sort of seals it all up into place. So anyway, that's how I do those. All right, one more thing I'm going to show you while I'm here on the bench is how I'm splicing into these existing wires, because it's going to be hard to show you inside the vehicle. So what I'm using is a military splice, or what you might hear is called as a NASA splice. But basically what I'm going to do is poke a hole in the middle of the wire I'm going to tap into, and then I'm going to splice it in mechanically. So I'll sort of show you on this extra wire that I'm not using. But basically, so let's say this is a wire that I need to tap into. What I'm going to do is come in with the cutters, and I'm just going to remove the sheathing off of the middle of that wire. Then I'm going to split the wire, and I'll generally use my test probe to do that. Like that. I'm going to take the new wire that I want to tap into it and run it through, sort of thread the needle. And depending on which way I want the wrap to go, basically I'm going to wrap it around one side and then come back and do just like that. And I'm going to fold this over to run along the wire, and then that is how I'm going to tap into. Now I'm going to tape that connection because I can't get heat shrink on there because this wire is connected on both ends. I'm just tapping into it. So then I'm going to tape that connection, and then down where the two wires come together, maybe an inch or so away from that joint. It's a little bit big of a zip tie I have here, but you get the point. I'm going to run a zip tie right there so that if these wires are tugged, you're not tugging on the joint, which is up here, you're tugging on the zip tie. So that is going to be a very strong and secure connection, and that's a great way to tap into these without worrying about soldering or T-taps or anything like that. You can use a simple T-tap. With a T-tap, it'll clamp onto the wire. Use pliers to clamp it in place, and then stick a spade in there. That's perfectly acceptable if you use a good quality brand like a 3M or something like that. A lot of people don't seem to like the Scotch locks, which route the wire parallel, but either way, this is actually a really secure connection. So this is how I'm doing all mine. Just wanted to show you because it's going to be hard to show you underneath the dash. All right, so another thing I'm doing is I'm putting a little bit of a harness sheathing on the gray and the brown wire. That's the siren and the hood pin wires. And the reason I'm sheathing those is because they're going to run through the firewall outside. I don't know how much sheathing I need, so I kind of just picked a length. I may have to trim it because eventually those wires are going to split. But for that transition from inside to outside, I wanted to have them in a protective loom. So that's what I'm doing now. Just inchworming this along. That'll keep the wires together, but also, again, sort of give them some protection, make it look clean. And that's how I roll. You get real good at inchworming. So, and then all these wires that are getting looms, get a little tape love on the end, and once I'm done with adding any wire looms, then I'll zip tie that to hold everything in place. But let's go ahead and plug in our T-harness into the ignition.